All right, YouTube, what's happening? We're back with another knife video, and we've got the Spartan Blades Harsey folder, the 3.25 edition, which is the smaller of the two. The other one's, I believe, a 4-inch blade. The other one's won some pretty big awards, Knife of the Year. They won a couple of manufacturing awards, or actually, maybe they just won Knife of the Year. Spartan Blades has had a couple of awards recently in blade shows, so they've made a name for themselves. They are made in North Carolina, made right here in the U.S., which is great. They are what I would call the higher end production folder line, like your Hinderers and Striders and Chris Reeve knives. They're up there with those companies as far as price points. Yeah, so I've never been interested in the larger one. It's just a bigger knife than I like to EDC. But the specs on this one are right in the wheelhouse. 3.25 inch blade. That had me like, that's like my perfect size knife blade right there. It's perfect for EDC. However, getting this in hand has been different. So let's talk about the specs first, and then we'll get into that. So it is a 3.25 inch blade. Total length is 7.125 inches, leaving the handle short of 4 inches. So that was actually one point of concern I had on this knife initially. Blade thickness is 0.125 inches. You've got S45 in still, so the new king of the, not a new king, but the new kid on the block of the S30, S35, now we got S45. Is it much different? Probably not. Are most people gonna notice a difference? Probably not. There is some differences, and it is technically a higher performing steel, but like I said, most people are not gonna know the difference between S35 and S45, in my opinion. Blade hardness is 5961. You got a flat grind on this guy with a drop point and a stonewash finish. 6AL 4V titanium everywhere, as you'd expect. Weighing in at 2.9 ounces, so it's very lightweight. Very, very similar to a small Sebenza, in my opinion. And I don't have a small Sebenza right now. I've had many, though, over the years. So many Chris Reeve knives. And for some reason, I sold off my last Sebenza. I don't know why. Because I look back and think, why? That's a knife everyone should have in their collection, I think. So I'm on the hunt for a new one. On the hunt for a small 31 micarta, if you have any leads on those. So anyway, back to this knife though. I digress a little bit. I was stoked about it, and I'm like, okay, this is the Spartan knife, so I want to try. $395 is a lot of money for a knife. Obviously, a knife's worth more money. I've bought way more expensive knives, but it's still a good amount of money. I mean, you're talking, as a gun guy, you're thinking, man, that's a high quality optic. That's, another gun. That's a lot. So you kind of like start to weigh those things and how they compare in price, right? So I have no doubt it's worth the penny, every penny. It's highly well made, a lot of good materials, made in the US. It's going to be a little bit more expensive. So let's do some size comparisons. A knife I got in at the same exact time, same day, the Civivi Pintail. There's that. You saw this from my unboxing video. Very, very similar in size, almost identical. Another knife I got in recently that has absolutely blown my mind is the Vox F5.5, almost identical in size to that. Now, that's the thing. This knife on paper should be, it sounds bigger. It's got a little bit bigger blade than these guys, than the last two, but it doesn't feel any bigger in hand. And that's one thing I wish they would have done. Now, they did optimize the blade to handle ratio here, guys. So it is absolutely like you're not getting more blade in that handle, but that actually can cause an issue right there of getting your finger on the edge of that blade. Now, it doesn't seem to be an issue. I'm trying here, and I'm not getting it, but it's very, very close. So, but overall, in the hand, this knife feels a titch smaller than it should, and maybe it's my perception, but it just, and it fits my hand well. Not to say it doesn't. Like I said, small Sebenza size. I like small Sebenzas. But where the issue lies for me is in the ergonomics of the knife. Now, it looks fantastic. It's a great looking knife. I like everything about it. I like the steel choice. I like the grind, the flat grind. The made in the USA. The clip's cool. It's not deep carry by any means. They share a very similar style to Hinder on their clips and their fillers. I wonder where they got that idea from. I don't know. Maybe it was Rick. But, he does fillers on his clips as well. He does fillers on the, I should say on this side. They do it on this side as well if you want to flip the clip over. Rick does offer that in some scales, but you know, the fillers are very similar. A lot of things are very similar. So, but the handle ergonomics, and it looks nice. It's a fantastic looking knife, but the handle ergonomics are weird, a little weird for me. And this could be just a me thing. If you have bigger hands or smaller hands, you might be right there. For me, this finger comes up under here, and it's actually it's a handle design thing, and it's also the sharp edges. So for the price point, I'd like to see a little bit more chamfering and just rounding out of these sharp edges. There's some sharp edges, especially on the frame lock right there, that really get my hand, that really just kind of bite into it. I had the same problem with the Benchmade Monolock, and it caused me not to keep the knife. And yeah, there's also some sharp edges up here, and they're mostly chamfered pretty well. But it's just these sharp points right here. This is super nitpicky, I know, but when you get a $400 knife in, you gotta be nitpicky on it, because it's like you're spending a lot of your own money, a lot of money on that knife. If it was an $85 knife or $100 knife or even a $200 knife, I'd be a little more lax on these kind of things. But at this price point, to me, it's like, those are some details that like your Chris Reeve knives aren't gonna miss. And even your Strider, I know people are gonna be like, Strider QC? Strider's actually been awesome in the last few years since Mick has really just kind of taken things over on his own. There's no sharp points and things on this knife. Same with the Hinderer. It's all nicely chamfered, and just, you know, even the Hinderer has a very similar, gosh, these handle shapes are similar. Similar groove right here, right? But it's so smooth. It doesn't have any sharp points. The lock bar doesn't have any sharp points. It just works. This guy has just a few little things like that have kind of bothered me. So when I get it in hand, I just immediately, on this meat of my finger, I feel a hot spot immediately. And that's just grabbing the knife. Like if I'm using the knife, that is definitely going to leave, you can see I kind of squoze it there, and it's going to leave a mark. You know, I'm going to feel that. Now this is a light duty EDC knife. This is not, I mean, it is a frame lock, so it could be a harder use knife, but its size and such merit more of an EDC knife. So under light use, you may not notice those things, but for me, it's kind of one of those things, like I spent a lot of money on this knife, I had high expectations, and that kind of didn't meet it. So there's that issue that I have with this guy. The other issue I have with it is it's thick behind the edge. Well, it's about 21 thousandths. I can remeasure it. It's hard to do this on camera. I never seem to get it in frame and all that kind of stuff. I'll try my best here. Zero these guys. No, it's like 22 thousandths. So 22, went up to 23, but it was at 22.5 thousandths behind the edge. Pretty thick behind the edge, which for this size of knife and folder, just doesn't make sense to me. It's like it should be thinner behind the edge. It's a smaller blade. It's, you know, it's not a hard use knife. It doesn't need to have a thicker edge. I mean, even hard use knives don't need to have thicker edges. That's a fallacy. But when you compare it to something like this, that's 13 thousandths behind the edge, or this guy, which is about 13, 14 on this guy too, the pintail. The size of the knife, it's just, I like this EDC knives to be slicey, cut well, and if they're gonna be small, they should have I think a pretty thin grind. So that's another kind of issue I have. So other than that, like, it's a very well-made knife. It's good looking. It, you know, overall does feel pretty good in the hand, minus that little hot spot up there in the front. And I think if they just went with a more neutral, well, first of all, if they kind of just rounded off that lock bar a little bit, not had such a sharp point there, and then even on the handle scales right here, and just did a more neutral design, like take out these finger grooves here, just make it kind of almost a skinny that we keep seeing with the Para 3, you know, that I've been a huge fan of for a long time. And then I look back at other knives I've always loved, like the Sabenza has a very neutral handle, the 940, the Strider, SNG, you know, it has that one finger groove, and then the rest is kind of just a neutral. It just works so well for ergonomics. And you see a lot of designers, they get these fancy grooves and fingers, you know, and it just doesn't fit everyone's hand. The problem with that is not everyone has the same size hand. So the designer thinks, hey, this might be good, and you know, it gives good ergonomics. It locks your hand in, but for everyone's hands are different. So it's like, it's going to work for some people's hands, but not for others. Where a neutral handle design works for everyone, right? Anyway. just ranting for some reason. Sorry, not the intent of this video. I'm not bagging on this knife. I feel like it's coming across that way, and I'm not intending to. It's actually a very well made, and it's going to be a super popular knife for this size. It is centered very well. The action, it does have dual thumb studs. I love that. I wish that Sebenzas came with dual lugs. You can get them added, and sometimes you can buy them that way, but I do love that it has dual lugs. It has some good jimping. This is a little aggressive up here, but it works. And that thumb ramp's got a little jimping, so it's comfortable to, you know, to use that way. But and the not bearings, it's on washers, and they're kind of like a self-lubricating washer. It's actually a pretty cool design. Maybe overkill on this knife, but you know, it works, and it does make for a decently smooth action. It's not like drop shut by any means, which is fine, doesn't need to be. But it feels smooth, it feels Sebenza smooth, honestly, it really does. But I think they kind of nailed that action really well. So I like that. I like the aesthetics of the knife. I think it's good looking, I like the size. The arrow clip is kind of the signature. It doesn't carry deep at all. Obviously, you're going to have that much of your knife sticking out of your pocket, which a lot of people is going to be a turn off for. There's no deep carry options. Actually, there may be some that fit that two-hole design. You know, and the Hinderer has the same issue. It's actually never been a big issue for me, but I know for some people it will be. I don't necessarily care that much about deep carry that much anymore. I like it, but it's not a deal breaker. But that might be for some of you. So kind of take that into consideration when thinking about dropping $400 on this knife. That brings me to my next point, is it is an expensive knife, and you are paying for quality, and you are paying for a good warranty, and you're paying for something manufactured in the United States. So, you know, there is value behind that $400, but it puts you into a price range that you're competing with a Hinderer, you're competing with a Chris Reeve. I wish I could say Strider, but Strider's just more expensive. But, you know, you can get Hinderers in that price point all day long. You can get a Chris Reeve small Sebenza in that price point all day long. And if I'm in that price point and I'm looking at those companies, I'm going to choose those other two. Honestly, it's not a Sebenza killer. I thought it might be in a way. I don't think such a thing exists. It's an alternative. If you don't like Chris Reeve knives for whatever reason, you know, but you're spending this much money, I want to point you in that direction every single time. I really am. A small Sebenza, especially on the secondary market, can be had for $300 or less. That's a 21. The 31s are a little bit more. Like I said, I'm on the hunt for a 31 micarta inlay. I think the new inlays are just so good looking on those knives. And it's just, you know, a step above in quality. It really is, from the Spartan blades. I would put it, you know, if I was ranking the quality of U.S. made knife makers, which is hard to do because there's a lot of good, we'll say production knife, I'm going to put Chris Reeve at the top, Strider, Hinderer, and then maybe Spartan below that. It's really not, they're good quality made knives. They really are. It's just, you know, for the price point, it's not jumping out to me that it's better than any of those knives. Let's put it that way. So if you like their designs, definitely go for it. They're in that same price range. And if maybe you have a ton of Hinderers and some Striders and some Chris Reeves and you're like, I just want something different, then for sure, great choice. But if you're in that price point and you're not, you know, haven't spent that kind of money on a knife and you're looking and you say, hey, well, should I get the Sebenza, or should I get the Spartan Harsey, or should I get the XM18? You know, I'm going to lean you towards those other ones. So that's my opinion, guys. I know it probably won't be that popular, but that's okay. That's life, right? We all have different opinions. Let me know your thoughts down below, and we will see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.